racism still has time to rear its ugly head and mistreat Black Africans while the Ukrainians beg for help from the world. It's unfathomable that you could beg for help from the world and mistreat somebody at the same time. Y'all, look, we're going to talk about this, but you know what? I'm going to need a cup of tea before we get started, so hang on, okay? Let's go get this tea. Let's go. Welcome to SYNOLVE's World Minute, where we talk about issues relating to the African diaspora, such as African Americans in the U.S., Africans in the U.K., people of African descent in the Caribbean, and all around the world. Come on in and join me for this conversation. Well, it hit the fan. Now, prophetically, we've been talking about this Black Exodus moment and the need for those of us who are melanated to leave the West and to leave as quickly as we can, to get out of the West and to get out of Western countries like the U.S., other Western countries, and to go where we are celebrated and not just tolerated. And oops, the prophetic lens just hit the fan. It just all hit the fan. Y'all, look, we're going to talk about this, but you know what? I'm going to need a cup of tea before we get started, so hang on, okay? Let's go get this tea. Let's go make this tea together. Okay, I got my tea. Let's get this started. Wait, let me take a sip. Okay, 2 sips. I'm so much better now. All right. So it would seem that prophetically from the ancestors that we have been getting these messages for quite some time now. Because, you know, at first when the ancestors are trying to talk to us, it starts out as a whisper. And then it just grows louder and louder and louder and louder until we finally pay attention because we have no choice. Get out, get out, get out, leave, 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 get out, leave, now, now. We're forced into a situation where we hit rock bottom, and then it's a force and it has to happen, it must happen. And maybe we should listen from the beginning when there's a still voice, quiet voice that's speaking within us, and the universe, the ancestors, the Most High are trying to get our attention. Leave, leave, leave. Now, leave the West, get out of the West, go back to the Caribbean, go back to Africa, go back to countries wherever they are around the world where you're welcome, right? And where you're celebrated and not just tolerated. I'd say that to you all of the time, and I'm saying that to myself as well. So I recently shared a post on my community page about Africans being abused and trapped in the Ukraine. So during the Ukraine-Russian conflict, which is still ongoing, Russian in this Russian invasion into the Ukraine. I have shared articles and videos on my community page, and so it's really a place where we can all get together, talk, and come together. I also share polls and other questions too about a large variety of topics that impact the world, but also specifically impact us within the African diaspora. So if you'd like to check out my community page, I'd appreciate it. Let's stay connected. So I shared, right, on my community page about how the conflict in the Ukraine is impacting Africans living in the region. And so there are many African students who have taken to social media to post videos and images about the racial abuse and the treatment they have endured while trying to flee from the Ukraine. I mean, it's all over the news. So people have taken to social media to share their own story. Like you, I have been watching content creators and reporters like April D. Ryan, who is the White House correspondent for the Griot. And she's also a political analyst for CNN. I've watched Tu Chineke, Michael Imhotep, Dr. Mumbi Suraki, Adiola Fayoun, and so many others, right? And so there's so many posts, as I said, coming from directly from brave and courageous African students who are facing these horrors and abuses firsthand, and they're telling their firsthand stories themselves. And so racism still has time to rear its ugly head and mistreat Black Africans while the Ukrainians beg for help from the world. It's unfathomable that you could beg for help from the world and mistreat somebody at the same time. So what's fueling the racism, and why are Poland and Belarus and other neighboring countries allowing Ukrainians in without hesitation, but are accused of blocking Africans during the Ukrainian conflict? They're doing it the same way. They're being accused of doing the same thing, of blocking refugees, African refugees, from passing, and only allowing white refugees or white Ukrainians to pass, the same way they blocked or were accused of blocking Syrian refugees in a recent conflict. It makes no sense. Well, perhaps a statement from an NBC correspondent, Kelly Cobiella, who's a correspondent for NBC News Now, she says, to put it bluntly, these are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from the Ukraine. They're Christian, they're white, and they're very similar to us. I can't believe she said that out loud. But anyway, well, that's certainly very interesting and enlightening. Please share your thoughts. I've left the links to Cobiella's statements below. All of this is unfolding in real time. Just days before, social media images surfaced of the mistreatment of Africans in Ukraine. Just before this all happened, Kenya's UN representative to the UN, Martin Kimani, denounced Russia's actions against the breach of Ukraine's territorial borders and was in support of the Ukraine. He said that the metropolises of London, Paris, Lisbon, without no regard for ancient nations, they cleaved apart. He goes on to say they didn't care about territorial borders, right? London, Paris, Lisbon. This is what Kamani is saying. He says that we believe all states from empires that have collapsed or retreated have many people yearning for the integration of peoples of neighboring states. So he goes on to reject, right, what Russia is doing and in support of Ukraine. And then, not much later after that, just a couple of days, Ukrainians are seen mistreating Africans. It just makes no sense. Well, Ghana also shared a message on, in their strong support of Ukraine. Harold Ejiman, Ghana's permanent representative to the UN Security Council, also shared a very strong message from Ghana on behalf of Ghana in support of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Nigerians have come out on social media and have already advised their government to remain mute in the face of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Look, I do feel in my spirit that I'm Nigerian. I really do. I really do. Because it sounds like me. It just sounds like something I would say. I'm just trying to tell you. Okay. All right. So, one of the things that we're going to talk about in this video is making good choices. And one of the things that this video highlights is making good choices about where you choose to go. Many of you are choosing, planning your relocation efforts, or you're planning to go somewhere else in the world. So it's important that you make the choice and the decision to go to places where you're going to be safe, and so where you're going to be happy and allowed to flourish. And you don't want to go in, to the middle of conflict or middle of a war zone. So it's important for you to know what's happening in the world and what's happening around you and what's happening in the country and the borders and territories, all of that, what's going on politically, geopolitically, and what's going on with its neighbors, with its enemies all around the world. So I want you to be aware of that and stay tuned to that and be open, about that in your research as you're researching and making decisions about your repat or expat journey. One of the things, as I said, you really want to go check out are the previous videos that I've done. I've done some videos with African Tigress, and also a response video that I did where I talked about things that you need to consider before moving to another country. And so I'll leave that in the link below or in one of the iCards so you can check that out as well. There's so many things that you need to know before you go. If you're going to move halfway around the world, you're going to move to a new country, there's so many things you need to know before you go. So let's be sure to check out these videos that I've done and reach out. Talk to other expats and repats and reach out to them so you are going to a safe place and you know exactly where you're going and you know exactly the problems or issues that you might face. It's your choice. So you just know upfront, ahead of time, you just know before you go, and you can make the best choice for you and your family to go where you're celebrated and not just stay where you're tolerated. Yeah. So this is just a wake-up call, right? To really listen to the ancestors, listen to the Most High, to connect with spirit, and to really go into our own spirits and realize what's going on around us, to watch the signs and watch the symbols, and to be connected with ourselves, to get connected with the Most High so that we hear and know what our next step is and what it is next for us to do and what we're being called to do, in this moment. So we have to get centered and grounded and connected, right? I've got a lot of videos on spirituality, on listening to our intuition, all of that. So check those out. How to connect to the infinite field. So check out that playlist on the infinite field below. If you have any questions about how to connect to the infinite field, then reach out to me and let's talk. This is SYNOLVE and I'm signing off. This has been your SYNOLVE World Minute, and I will see you in another broadcast real soon. I love you guys. You are amazing. You are beautiful. You are worthy. You are wonderful. You are precious and you are loved. If you are still in the Ukraine and you hear this message, know that we stand with you, and you are not forgotten, and you are loved. I love you guys so much. I'm going to see you in another broadcast real soon. Bye-bye, guys.